In previous videos, we looked at Dooku's unique place within the Sith Order, drawing distinctions between the former Jedi as a user of the dark side and an adherent to true Sith philosophy, as say a Sidious, Plagueis, or Vader was. The best description of this difference is provided by Yoda when discussing Dooku's dark path with Chancellor Palpatine. For Yoda, because Dooku had joined the Sith so late in life, it was hard to know if Dooku was a true Sith, or merely someone who turned to the power of the dark side to forge the galaxy as they wished, which for Dooku was defined by destroying the Republic. Regardless of how one defines Dooku, it's difficult to deny he was a Sith that walked the path of the dark side, who as a powerful apprentice of Darth Sidious, unleashed untold destruction and suffering upon the galaxy. And yet, the Legends lore has established that Dooku was far closer to being redeemed back into the light than one might realize. Only months before the end of the Clone War, Dooku would come face to face with his former Jedi Master Yoda, with the Jedi attempting to do nothing more than save Dooku from his allegiance to the dark side. Although it's difficult to imagine Dooku fully redeemed, Yoda came closer than one might expect. With Dooku overseeing the Separatist war effort on the Outer Rim planet of Vajun, a planet saturated in the dark side, the Sith Lord captured a Jedi Master named Jai Merrick. Seeing an opportunity, Dooku allowed the Jedi to live, and sent him back to the High Council and Yoda with a message. Dooku claimed he wanted peace, and to prove the sincerity of his offer, he had Jai Merrick present to Yoda a simple shell. The item had meaning only for Yoda, which represented a discussion Yoda had with Dooku 63 years earlier in the Jedi Temple's gardens, when Dooku used the shell he found as a metaphor for the temple being his home, with a young Dooku ultimately admitting his fear to leave the temple for the first time and begin his duties as a Jedi. Wise beyond his years, Dooku saw the galaxy as something to fear, as outside of the safe temple walls, he knew things like the dark side waited for him. Yoda assured Dooku then that the Temple and Jedi Order would always be his home, and if Dooku ever fell or found himself lost, Yoda would be there to pick him up and bring him home. Thus, Yoda saw Dooku's message for peace and a private meeting with him alone a potential call from Dooku to rejoin the Jedi and potentially be redeemed. Of course, Yoda was also hesitant, knowing that it could be a trap, which is exactly what it was, with the plot being created by Dooku and Sidious to kill Yoda. And yet, Yoda couldn't let the opportunity go, finding some hope to save his former Padawan. After Yoda received and watched a holocommunication sent by Dooku, which again reiterated the Sith Lord's desire to meet with Yoda privately and hinting at his desire to return to the Jedi Grandmaster's decision was even more difficult. He was certain it was a trap, but it was still a chance to save Dooku. Fortunately for Yoda, a vision of Qui-Gon Jinn then appeared before him. The novel Dark Rendezvous describes it as more of a specter almost than a Force ghost, but nonetheless, Qui-Gon Jinn manifested before Yoda. While they concluded Dooku was likely setting up Yoda on the orders of Sidious, Qui-Gon had an insight that would make Yoda's decision for him. Dooku might believe he was acting in service to the Sith, but in reality, he was lying to himself and was genuinely, in some way, reaching out to Yoda for a chance at redemption. Now bolstered by the slight glimmer of hope, Yoda decided to travel to Vajun to confront Dooku. As Yoda appeared before Dooku on Vajun, the Sith Lord's first reaction is extremely telling. Dooku recognized he felt confused in the moment, wishing he could rid himself of any and all emotions and thoughts so he could simply carry out the wishes of Sidious. Although Dooku attempted to start the conversation by discussing the Jedi Order's failure in becoming mere tools of the Republic, Yoda wanted none of it, instead wanting Dooku to tell him how the war could be ended, and more importantly, to attempt to turn him to the dark side. Dooku was initially shocked, now having the opportunity to play master to Yoda himself. He attempted to persuade the Jedi Master a number of ways, promising power and wealth through the dark side, but Yoda rejected these, noting he already had them. It wasn't until Dooku offered Yoda a chance to be free from fear that Dooku would get a glimpse of Yoda in a way that terrified him. With Yoda stating that the war had cost him what he cared about most, that being other Jedi he saw as family, Yoda turned to look at Dooku in a way that made him appear exactly as Sidious would. What Yoda would look like if he allowed himself to utterly unleash his full power through the dark side. Dooku recognized it was Yoda's Sith avatar, and as Dooku feared Yoda in that moment, feeling uniquely vulnerable, he revealed the entire meeting had been a trap. Yoda simply accepted it, knowing that that was the case all along anyway. Yoda had a much more important point, the lesson of revealing his Sith avatar to Dooku. Yoda revealed that despite being the Jedi Grandmaster and the so-called beacon of light within the galaxy, he carried a darkness within him, one that he held for a very long time. But at the same time, as Yoda revealed this, he also revealed he still sensed the light within Dooku, even after his years of service to the Sith. Therefore, Yoda implored Dooku to simply choose the path of forgiveness and the light, telling Dooku he would help to save him. At this, you get the feeling that Dooku is much closer to accepting Yoda's offer than you'd think, with the novel clearly referencing sweat running down Dooku's face, and the Sith Lord finding it difficult to reject the truth Yoda was telling him. However, we never get to see Dooku's own unencumbered decision, as at that moment, he realized that unbeknownst to Yoda himself, Anakin and Obi-Wan had also traveled to Vajun to save Yoda. Thus, Dooku was pulled from the lesson and his chance at redemption, despite the fact that Yoda was adamant that as Dooku wished, he didn't bring Obi-Wan or the Chosen One with him to Vajun, and that he didn't wish to hurt Dooku. However, Dooku wouldn't listen, not even hesitating to ignite his lightsaber and attack Yoda in a lightsaber duel. Dooku would eventually escape as he did on Geonosis, but the most telling part of Yoda's experience, and speaking to just how close he was to redeeming Dooku, is a conversation he would have with Anakin on Vajun afterwards. As Anakin and Obi-Wan ran up to Yoda following his duel with Dooku, questioning if he was alright, Yoda simply responded that he was unhurt but also sad, lamenting the fact that he was quote, so close. Anakin, of course, misinterpreted Yoda's point, asking if he almost killed Dooku. With this, Yoda gave Anakin a look that's described as almost angry, looking oddly at the young Jedi. Clearly, Yoda believed he almost redeemed his former Padawan, and was both angry and sad that his attempt wasn't allowed to be brought to its conclusion, unknowingly interrupted by Anakin and Obi-Wan. Fortunately, there's a great scene that further discusses this moment between Yoda and Dooku on Vajun, and Yoda's thoughts on Dooku's redemption in the novel Labyrinth of Evil. Of course, Sidious knew Yoda traveled to Vajun through a Sidious identity, but also as Chancellor Palpatine as well, as Yoda had to reveal to the Chancellor he was going on a special mission to Vajun involving Dooku. And so Sidious, who was interested to learn what Dooku's reaction was, feeling as though Dooku could potentially be swayed to the light through such a confrontation, asked Yoda directly what happened between him and Dooku on Vajun, and if Dooku was at all inclined to return to the Jedi and the Republic. Having had weeks to consider their confrontation, Yoda seemed less confident in how close Dooku was to being redeemed, telling Palpatine there was no returning from the dark path. Even more, with Palpatine suggesting that maybe Dooku could be rehabilitated back into the light by the Jedi if he was captured, Yoda instantly rejected such a possibility, telling the Supreme Chancellor that Dooku, at this point, would never allow himself to be captured by the Jedi, let alone rehabilitated by them. Death as a Sith was Dooku's destiny. Therefore, it appears that while Dooku was almost brought down the path of redemption by Yoda during the Clone War, it was a unique and fleeting opportunity that Yoda experienced with his former Padawan, and while it could have possibly been done on Vajun, Yoda's failure ensured that Dooku would never again walk the path of the light. So there we have it, Yoda's attempt to redeem Dooku during the Clone War. Thank you very much to all of the Patreon members of Star Wars Reading Club, as your support is so greatly appreciated. If you'd like to support us on Patreon, you can find a link to it in the description below, along with all of our social media links and a link to our Star Wars gaming channel. We love making these videos, so why not subscribe for more fun Star Wars theories and discussions. Also, if you enjoyed the video, think about giving a like or leaving a comment. If not for me... for Yoda Sith avatars.